We were fortunate enough to have a great doctor, and Ramsey Abood, and he basically put it in perspective for us. You know, just because when I found out, I went in the room and he just said, "Hey, listen, I don't know who you are, and I don't know anything about hockey. Okay, I just want you to know this. I want to be upfront with you." He said, "But these two doctors right here, they seem to think you're the toughest guy that walked the soil of St. Louis. And I have 24 people on the other side of the door who are concerned." And he said, "So I have an obligation to make you better, and I'm going to make you better." I'm like, "Oh." He goes, "You good with that?" I said, "I'm great with that." He said, "Okay, well," he goes, "let's get started. We're going to make a plan. Do you want to make a phone call to anybody?" And I said, "I don't need to make a phone call." And he said, "Well, I see you're married. Do you want to call your wife?" And I said, "No, she's out of town right now. Let's just make a plan and I'll fill her in and we'll go from there." And he said, "Okay." And we went through this entire plan, and then he asked us if we wanted to know any prognosis. And I said, "No." He said, "You don't want to know anything. You don't want to know numbers, percentages, nothing." He said, "No." I said, "There's two teams, right? Winning team and losing team?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then just get me on the right team. We'll be all right."
I'm wondering, as tough as you are, have there been frightening moments for you?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And how'd you get through that?
Well, there's actually a funny story about that. I think you you actually have them more than you think you might have them, called chemo brain or chemo fog or whatever. I had one in the hospital, and I had a little bit of a breakdown in the shower at about 11 at night and was having trouble. I was like hyperventilating, and I was in tears. So I did what any normal, sane human being would do. I called Twist on the phone. I said, "You got to come and get me, dude. I'm losing it in here." And I was supposed to be out 2 days earlier because my numbers were there, but my doctor was away at a seminar. And so we had this agreement that if I got my numbers, that he was going to let me out. And it was before Christmas, and my actual time to be released was the 5th of January. And this was the 20th of December when my numbers hit. So it's the 22nd now, or the night of the 21st. And I called Twister. I said, "Hey, man." He said, "What's wrong?" And he could tell I was emotional and rattled. And I said, "You got to get me out of here. I'm losing it. I got to get out of here. Come and get me." And his answer was, "Are you hooked up to anything?" And I said, "No." He said, "I'll be there in 25 minutes. And he's coming to get me." So I sat in my bed for a minute or two and thought, you know what, this might not be the smartest idea. And the guy is like, there's not many 3 a.m. guys. He's a 3 a.m. guy. Like, you call at 3 a.m. And they're becoming more rare. And the next day, he said, I phoned him. I said, "Come the next day. Come tomorrow. Because after 8:30, they're going to see me. No one's going to have a shift change at 4, and they're not going to need me till then. And by then, we'll be gone." And, you know, he said, "What do I need to bring?" I said, "Bring 2 hockey bags. They've put all this Christmas decorations and shit up in here. And I got to take this tree down. And there's all these baskets people have sent." And I said, "I need 2 hockey bags. And I need a truck because I brought my Peloton in and made a bet with the doctor," which was also part of the deal, that I would ride the Peloton. He said I'd be laying underneath it 3 days. I said, "We'll see." So I rode it 24 days in a row. And I said, "Bring something." So he comes up in the room the next day. He's got the dolly, the janitor dolly, and a card for me to get down the express elevator with an employee card. Don't ask me how. And he says, "Okay, let's load these up." So we load up the bags, and he says, "Okay, let's go." And I said, "The doctor hasn't been in here yet." And he said, "Well, I'm taking this stuff out of here right now." And he goes, "Look out the window." And I looked in the emergency lot in the U-turn, and he had his flashers on. He had pylons around his truck. He had a hoist down for the pylon. He said, "Find a sheet for that Peloton, because I have no idea how we're going to sneak that out of here. Use this card, go down to the basement, go by the coffee shop, go up the escalator, and get in my truck outside. You see my truck? I'm on the 10th floor." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Get out of here." So I wait for the doctor to come back, and when the doctor comes in, Twist's back in the room, and he says, I said, well, look who showed up. All the work's done. You show up. You're 2 days late. You can't keep your word. You told me you'd let me out of here. I'm giving it to the doctor. He's giving it back to me, saying, you're all right. I'm going to let you go. You're going to be fine, because I'm going to discharge you today. You okay with that? And I go, I'm okay with it. Are you actually going to do it, though? Like, you know. He goes, yeah. You good with that? And then he looks over and he goes, hey, how are you? Twister just shakes his head. He goes, I'm Dr. Ramsey Abood. He goes, Tony. Goes, you a hockey player, Tony? And Twister goes, nope. And he says, you okay with I release him today, Tony? Twister goes, oh, I knew he was leaving today. I wasn't sure how we were getting this Peloton out of here, but I knew he was going. And he looks around the room and he sees all my stuff's gone. He goes, where's your stuff? And I said, my stuff? What are you talking about? He goes, where's all your stuff? I said, he took it. He goes, he took it. And it dawns on him that I was leaving. He says, what's the matter with you, hockey players? What's the matter with you? You know, you don't have the flu. You got leukemia. What's the matter with you? And Twister just, at that point, grabs the bike and walks out of the room. He's not hearing any of it. And they took it all back with my sons to my house. And on the 27th, I went in for a bone biopsy. My wife had no idea this had happened, and he proceeded to go through this whole thing about how he was going to make me an outpatient in my next round, and I'm going to have no immune system, no white blood cell count, no platelets, but I'm going to let you go home. I said, oh, okay. He said, now, doesn't that sound good? And I said, yeah. He says, it's stupid, but it's good, right? And I said, what are you talking about? And then my wife tied into me. And then she said, you want to leave after 7 days of chemo? You can go stay with Twist. You want to live somewhere? You live with Twist. So I look at the doc, and I can't believe that he has told my wife. And I'm looking, and I go, really? You know? So then I got the act tied into me. I was actually back in the hospital for the second round, January 1, which is 4 days before I was supposed to start to get out for my first round. I wasn't supposed to start my second round until February. Anyways, he reamed me out and said she needed to hear that, and so did you. And there was a whole bunch in between there that I had to hear. And then just before we were leaving, I said, you know, if you'd kept your word when you said you were, instead of being at some seminar, he said, doctors have seminars. He said, next time you're at one, you can maybe get them all together and have them gather and tell them that every time they run home, they don't need to tell their wife everything, because that's what hockey players do. And so him and I got into it a little bit, and then he had me back in the hospital on January 1 for round 2.
Didn't you issue some type of mandate to your doctors about using the word lucky?
Well, they kept telling me how lucky I was. This happened, you're lucky. This happened, you're lucky. I snapped my tendon off my kneecap. Boy, you're lucky, because it could have really been damaged, and then we can't do surgery on you, and you're lucky. And I was in a wheelchair for a couple weeks. My tooth wouldn't heal, which is part of how I got to mention her name. Trish Herford found out that I was sick, got into it a little bit with my oral surgeon, Mr. Pence, and Doc and her hashed it out, and I went and got surgery anyway. And then they told me how lucky I was because I didn't bleed. And they had packed this cadaver bone up in my mouth and sewed me up. And, oh, you're lucky, you're lucky. And then I'd had a huge infection in my back end, and it was extremely painful, and they had defibbed twice on the operating table. And so they kept telling me how lucky I was that they had been able to, you know, get my heart going again twice. And I said, after I snapped my tendon, the lady's like, you're lucky because you're not going to need surgery. And I said, if one more person tells me how lucky I am in this place, I'm going to throw them right out through the 10th floor window. I said, because the shit that I'm watching right now in the chair I'm sitting in, I don't feel very lucky. But I was just having one of those days. And the people at Siteman's are unbelievable. The nurses, and the stuff they put up with is unbelievable. Like, because you do have those days. You have bad thoughts.
Yeah. Has there been a time at all during this where you say, why me, and why does it continue? Or have you not taken that route?
Nah, you know, Tony Granato is one of the guys that's going to, you know, I'm sure you'll talk to on your radio show, or hopefully you'll get a chance to talk to. He's going to be one of the guys that are the poster childs for this. We call us the Make-A-Wish kids for this game. You know, we get to see all these guys, and it's great for us. But he put in perspective, he said, you know, we have a platform that we have always had because of hockey. We've been, you know, we've been given an opportunity to help people. Now, if you choose to do that or you don't choose to do that, that's your prerogative. But that platform's there for you to do good things, right? And he said that his doctor told him, came home and said, Tony, you know, I know how much you loved helping kids as a coach. It was a big thing to you. Just think of the platform you're going to have now and how many more people you can help because of how big cancer is. Just think of how many more people that you get a chance to touch and do something for. So I guess, you know, the why me part of it, I asked the doctor, I said, how'd I get it? He said, you drew a bad card. You know, it could have been 1,000 different things, we don't know. But you got it, and we're going to beat it, which I have no doubt. And so I guess now you have to use it to, you know, to do better.
I can ask this question because you're in remission and I know you're going to beat it. But was the scariest thing thinking, my boys and my wife, I can't leave now?
I speak at a lot of functions, and I have this saying about reading the paper. I say, when we were playing cards on the plane, there's always a time on the plane you're playing cards, and I was always facing the front of the plane, and I would always talk about the captain, and I'd say, listen, if we hit turbulence and this guy just keeps reading the paper, I just go back to the card game. Right? If he starts reaching for masks and masks and seatbelts, you're like, holy shit, something bad's going to happen, right? So I just say, read the paper. And it was tough to read the paper when I saw them, because shit. That's what matters, you know. So it's one thing. You go to the game, you put on a strong face, you see people, and I was actually with Twister when I said to my wife, people are scared of me, scared. And she said, they're not scared of you. I said, oh yeah, they are. And I said, no, they're not scared of you. And I said, no, they're not scared of me, they're scared for me. But I can see it in their face. And she said, no, they're not. And I said, listen, I made a living knowing when people are scared of me. And I can tell you when they're scared. And they're scared. And you can put on that, you know, that toughness, but you really don't want to let people down. But at home, it's way up here. You know, so it's the first time I can honestly say I was saying it, but I didn't know if I could come through.
How about your background and how this has helped in your battle here? I mean, you're tailor-made to beat this thing.
Yeah, you know. Well, yes and no. I guess, yeah, because, like, I know losing my dad young, I didn't want to be in that spot, right? And then the toughness part of it, like, all my boys are mentally tough, and they're all, you know, they're really, I would say we've done our part, okay? But the fight through stuff, you know, my youngest one is a tough kid, and he's on the ice tough. You can see him on social media and whatever, but that doesn't make you mentally tough. Mentally tough is going through challenges and then meeting them challenges and then having another one, and, you know, because it's not about the setback, it's about the comeback, okay? So what you do with that, you know, what you do with that and how you learn from that, I guess has made me who I am. I never was supposed to play. I did. I probably wasn't supposed to have the success that I'm having in business, and I am. And yet, you know, I'm grateful for all of that, because those are the things that those are like winning hockey games, when you win those challenges, right? Having a family that's respectful, that's the cup. It's like winning a cup, right? But you do have to put it in perspective a little bit and go, you know, you got to listen to your doctor. I didn't want to listen. You know, I did my own thing with the Peloton in there, and I found out there's a lot of things that I do for my own mental being, because, you know, I don't want you to fly. Why don't you want me to fly? Well, you could catch something. Well, I could get run over on the street out there too, but I don't do it, you know. I could, you know, I want you to be careful, because you're gonna go into that big room and there's a bunch of things in there that could happen. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go in there because there's a kid in there I need to see, or somebody I think it's important to get to. So, am I tailor-made for this? I don't know that I'm tailor-made for it, but I think that all of the life lessons, all those challenges and all those things that happen to you, they set you up in a good spot where you have an opportunity to meet things head on a little differently. And to me, that's important.
Last thought. Do you dream of the day when the doctor says to you face to face, you've beaten it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that day looks like exactly, or how much tequila I'm going to drink, but but I do. Like, I do, and I, you know, and I didn't ever think that I wasn't gonna. Like, I know, like right now, I know I'm emotional, but there was never a time where I said, you know, this is going to get the better of me. I just don't think that way. I don't think that way. I fought my whole life for people, for other people. So, you know, my family and me, that's easy. You know, fighting for them. I don't know what it'll look like.